All right, so hey guys, welcome to the first official lesson of Excel with Shell. I know this is topic 2, but this is the first lesson where we're going to dive into what Excel actually is and what you can do with it. So Excel is a spreadsheet, right? And so it's a spreadsheet that was developed by Microsoft Office, and it's made up of things such as calculations, pivot tables, graphs, VBA, which is coding. You can use all of these tools within Excel. And if you think of the calculator, where you can calculate certain things on the calculator, certain math functions, well, you can do the same thing with Excel. And so it's oftentimes much quicker and much more powerful. So let's go ahead and start to discuss some of the commonly used features and to go over the Excel interface. So like I said, Excel is just a big old spreadsheet, and it's made up of columns. So you'll see A, B, C, D, E, F, so on and so forth are the columns. And they're made up of rows. And so the rows start with number 1, 2, 3, and it goes down and down and down. Okay, where the column and the row intersects is called a cell. So for example, cell A1 would be the intersection of column A and row 1. And so I want you to know that typically with Excel, you'll see these grid lines. So if I go to my View tab and I select Grid Lines, it's moving a little slow. Now you will notice all of these grid lines here. And that's probably what you have gotten accustomed to seeing it with Excel. I just removed them because for the course, I thought it would be nicer looking to have the grid lines removed. And so just know that you can always go and replace them if you would like. Okay, so let's go ahead and start exploring. So we're going to go up to the ribbon, and this area up top, this is called the ribbon. Okay, this is where all of the magic happens. So the first thing I want to talk about is the File tab, and that's the first one here. And so on the File tab, you enter into, once you click on it, you enter into what Excel calls the Backstage view. It's where you can find all the file-related info, such as save, print, export, close, etc., etc. So let's go to the File button. The File tab, rather. All right, so my computer sometimes just acts a little strange. Okay, so all of those things were what I talked about that I just mentioned, that's what you can find here on the File tab. So for example, if I click on the New tab, this is where you go to open up a blank workbook. That's a brand new workbook with nothing on it. The Open tab is where you would go to open up spreadsheets that you have used recently. Your Save, this is where you would save a copy of your spreadsheet. Printing, this is where you would go to print. If you wanted to export the file or share it, all of those options are right here. You can also close Excel from this view. And there's also the Options section where you can go to access more advanced features of Excel, and we will actually be doing that in a little bit. Not now, it just popped up because I clicked on it, and I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Okay, so as I mentioned before, you can open a new workbook from the File tab. So let's go ahead and try that. So let's go down to Open. Nope, New. We're going to open a new one. And click on Blank Workbook. Left click on your mouse, and now you have a new workbook open, and you'll notice that it says Sheet 1 on the bottom, and the book name is always going to be found here. Okay, since this is the second workbook that I have open, it calls it, Excel automatically names it Book 2, but you can name it something more meaningful to you, and we're going to go over that in a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and return back to the lesson. So the quick access toolbar, that can also be found on the ribbon. Yours may be up here in the right hand corner. Mine is right here. And so the quick access toolbar allows you to do things like save your work, and I strongly suggest you do that often while you're going along. So right now I have autosave on just because of where I'm saving my work. And you can do that too, and I'll go over that later. Undo typing. This feature is used to undo anything that you've just typed in Excel. If you've made a mistake, you just click on this undo button and then the redo button. If you decided that it was a mistake after all. Okay, so we already talked about the ribbon. Again, this whole area here is called the ribbon. Okay, and the ribbon is comprised of several tabs. There's the Home tab, there's the Insert tab, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View, Developer, Add-ins. Okay, and this is where you'll find the common commands that you will use when building your worksheet, and we are going to go into this into more detail as we go along. Just want you to be aware of what they are and where they're located. All right, so each tab is made up of groups. And so for instance, we're on the Home tab, and so the Home tab has the Clipboard group, the Font group, the Alignment group, the Number group, the Styles group, Cells, and Editing. And so any tab that you go to, that you navigate to, is made up of groups. And so each group consists of related functions. Okay, and as I mentioned before, we will talk about this in more detail because we will use these tabs quite a bit. Okay, and I talked about the groups. Tasks that are related are grouped together. Let's see, the command button. Within each group, you will see command buttons. So for instance, if I navigate to the Font group, this box here is called a command button. This box here, which is the underline, is called a command button. So these are all referred to in Excel as command button. I will probably say throughout the course, click on the button within the Styles group, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I won't always say command button, but that is the formal name. The formula bar. The formula bar is right here, and you'll see this little FX right here, and this is pretty important. As we start to work on building our formulas, you will see the formula appear in this formula bar, and it will also appear in the cell. Okay, the worksheet area. As I mentioned, the worksheet area is made up of thousands of rows and columns and headings, and this is where you will actually input your data. Okay. The status bar. The status bar lets you know what mode you're in. Okay, so the status bar is right here. You see where it says ready? If I start to type in a cell, that ready mode turns to enter mode. It lets you know that you are now entering data into a cell. Okay, and so if your worksheet or your workbook gets stuck or it's not moving or something's happening, look down, make it a practice to look down in the bottom left hand corner at the mode to see if it's in ready mode. Okay. All right, so again, let's quickly review what each tab is used for. The Home tab is where you go to create a worksheet. Formatting and editing is also done here. We're going to use this a lot, so we'll get very familiar with this because we'll do a lot of formatting and we'll do a lot of editing and things like that. Editing is in this section here, this group here. You'll see your formulas, so you can quickly access the most commonly used formulas, or you can scroll down to access more formulas. Okay, cells, this is where you can format your cells. Styles, we'll talk about that more. The number group, this is where you can format any numbers in your cell, and you can make it a general format, which is just no specific format, a number, currency, a date, time, percentage. So there's lots of things that you can do in this group. The alignment group, this aligns your text or your values in your cells. So for instance, if I type 1, 2, 3 and Excel automatically aligns numeric values to the right. If I wanted it in the center, I would go and click right here on this box, and now it's aligned in the center. Okay, let's see, page layout. Oh, did I skip one? Insert. Let's go back to insert. Insert is where you would go to insert things like pivot tables, which we're going to do in a later module. You can add tables, you can add charts, which we're going to do. You can add pictures, headers and footers, and things of that nature. So let's go on to page layout. Okay, there are 5 groups under this tab. As I mentioned earlier, each group, there are related tasks in each group. So this one has colors, fonts, effects, and themes. Okay, and you can apply that to your work. You can change the color, you can change the font, you can pick a particular theme. And see, these are the different themes. You can also go to the page layout to change the orientation of your work before getting ready to print. You can set your print area here. You can look at your page breaks. Scale to fit. This is where you can go to say that I want all of my work to fit onto one page. Okay, and you can change the width here if you want it to fit on 2 pages. You can do that, 1 page, whatever your preference is. We talked about grid lines. If I click the grid lines, you see they reappear. I removed them for this course, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. Formulas is self-explanatory. This is where we will go when we start building our formulas. Data. Navigate to this tab, excuse me, if you're working on a database, and let's say you want to import some data from a separate database, you will go here to do that. Now this is a more advanced topic, and this will be discussed more in a later course that I am developing, but I just want you to be aware of it. Review. This is where you can go to review your work. Did you know that Excel also has spell check? So if you are creating a worksheet, I would strongly suggest that you always use spell check to make sure that there are no typos in your work, especially if you're going to pass it along to someone else for review. Also on this tab, you can protect your workbook. So if you want to protect the entire workbook or the sheet and password protect it, you can do that. The only thing I would say to you, I'd caution you that if you use a password, you need to remember it or put it somewhere where you can find it, because once it's locked, it's locked. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the View tab. This is where you can go to view your worksheet. So for instance, if you want to zoom in, zoom out, if you want to split the worksheet into 2 panes, you can do that here. So like right here, you can view it, split into 2 panes here. You can view your work side by side. And so Excel will just create 2 copies of your current worksheet, and you can view it side by side. And zoom. If you want to zoom in on your work, you can do that here. Just a couple of other things that are not in these instructions here, but I thought it is worthwhile mentioning. If you go up into this corner here, okay, you'll see this little arrow up, and it says ribbon display options. If you click on that, there are several different options for your ribbon. I would suggest to keep it as it is. You can always change it if you need to, but I don't think that it's really necessary. I always keep mine just like this. So just want you to know what that is. This is your minimize button, and as you hover over each button, you'll notice that there's a description that pops up. Okay, And so I just minimized my worksheet. I clicked on that. It's gone, but it's not gone forever. All you have to do, I'm going to minimize this one too. I'm going to minimize that. If I go and I click back on the workbook down here in my status bar, it reappears. Okay, so if you happen to click that by accident, no worries. Just click on the worksheet again and it will restore to full size. This is the restore down. The restore down is not going to minimize your worksheet completely. It's just going to reduce the size of it. So for instance, if you wanted to reduce the size to access something else that you were working on, like a Microsoft Word document, or you wanted to get to the internet, you can just restore it down and then just maximize it back to full size when you're ready. This is what you use to close out your workbook. Now, if you were to click on this and say close, Excel is going to ask you, do you want to save your document? Okay, and it typically does, and it didn't this time, but that's not a problem. So let me go back and open it up. Typically what happens is it asks you if you'd like to save your document. So I think because I have autosave on, and when you use autosave, Excel is saving it along the way. It's consistently saving your document, so you don't necessarily have to click save upon closing. But if you don't have autosave on, excuse me, you'll get that message, which Excel will ask you, do you want to save your document? And you should typically say yes, unless for some reason you don't need to. All right, so I think we have touched upon the most important things of the Excel interface. So now you're familiar with the ribbon, you're familiar with tabs, you're familiar with how to open and close a new worksheet. And so I think that's it for this lesson, and we'll be touching on some other things as we go along, but I wanted you to have the main things. And so that's it, and I'll see you over in the next lesson.